I'm honestly surprised mice haven't been truly domesticated. They're kind of cute, once you get past them being pests. You think of them as gross because they're eating your food, and you think of them as carrying diseases and fleas and stuff into your house. But people thought that about cats too before cats became domesticated. Cats domesticated themselves because of mice, because about 10,000 years ago, field mice moved into our houses because we started storing food. When we started farming, we started growing our own food, domesticating our crops, and having livestock ourselves, and having to keep grain and food for our livestock. That attracted the mice. That's when the cats decided living with us wasn't so bad after all. All that said, I'm honestly surprised we didn't domesticate them, but we kind of did, because about 1100 BC in China, the Chinese folks start breeding them for color and for fancy mice shows. They breed them for brown, they bred them for white, they bred them for spots. They were breeding them for fancy mouse shows, and that trickled across the globe. That started in China, just trickled across the globe, where other people started breeding little white mice and little brown mice and little spotted mice. But the thing about the white mouse is that there's no way for white mouse to survive in nature because there's no natural camouflage there. The thing is obviously visible as it runs around the woods or the neighborhood or the house. Maybe it could survive in the Arctic. I'm not sure. They were bred for albinism, not the original white mice. The original white mice were just bred for being fancy show. But by 1909 and between 1909 and 1920, they had a standard of several different strains that Harvard was using for testing. And they'd been bred specifically for albinism because that made sure they were an inbred set with a specific set of genes that made sure they could run the same test on several hundred different mice and track the results and get similar results if what they were testing was accurate. If they just picked 1,000 different random mice out of the field, the genetic difference between the mice could be the reasons why whatever they were doing did or didn't work. So they needed to be sure that what they were doing was effective. They needed to isolate the genes that were responsible for the issues they were treating. For instance, if a mouse had a propensity to develop cancer, then would this treatment be or not be effective? But you wouldn't know if you tried it on a mouse strain that actually was cancer resistant. And if a mouse strain was cancer resistant, why was it cancer resistant? Let's study that. Let's isolate what made it different from the other mice in the program. So that's why they needed to isolate genes and make sure that what they were working with was the same all the way across. Another reason mice make great testing subjects is one breeding pair of mice can make up to 5,000 offspring annually. That's handy. If you need a lot of test subjects, that's handy to be able to have that many babies. What happens is they have a new set of pups every 3 weeks, and they can have babies every 3 weeks, and 6 weeks after they're born, they can have more babies. And so while one breeding pair can make 5,000 babies, they make a lot of other breeding pairs. They're very similar genetically to humans, so if medicine works on a mouse, it's likely that it works on a human. There are tons of regulations in place, either through the country that it's happening in or through the company that's hosting it. There are tons of regulation in place to ensure the humane treatment of the mice. There are 30 Nobel Prizes associated with white mice for everything from cancer research to genome research to diabetes, antibiotics. Any kind of medicine that you can think of was probably tested on mice before we got to the humans, if it wasn't tested on chimpanzees. They sent mice to space. They sent several different mice into space, and one of them lived in space for 91 days, and they all came back alive. We can't even say that for the humans we sent to space. We had to send enough humans to space to make sure it was safe for the mice. There are 111 million mice used in experiments every year around the world, 30 million in the US, 12 million in the EU, and there are 11,000 strains of mice just in the Jackson lab in Maine, and they ship them around the world. So there's our story of mice and men.